Yeah, it's been a rough week. This was my first week at my new job where
Of
I'm
course.
teaching at the college. And so, a quick little background. For a normal assistant professor, 3 classes is a full load. Like
Okay.
that's what you, and then if you want to teach anything beyond that, that's called moonlighting. And so that's outside of your contract and you get extra pay for that.
Yeah.
But there's a limit to how many you can take on. And for the first year, for your first quarter, the first time you're teaching, they don't want you to go over that limit.
Yeah.
My position is actually the assistant professor and director of the nuclear technology program. And so part of my compensation is that as the director title, I don't get extra pay. I get one less class I have to teach. So I only
Oh,
am
okay.
required by my contract to teach 2 classes. I'm teaching 6.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Oh, yeah, we had an adjunct resign yesterday. Decided he didn't want to do it anymore. First week of the new quarter. And
Wow.
so not planning to go in, and he teaches in the evening. So I've already done a work day and then had to roll in last night at 5, introduce myself to a whole new class, explain what's going on. And that's after a full week of teaching 5 other classes already. So
You're
I'm
feeling
a
it.
little exhausted. And I don't have the bandwidth and the reserve to go like that with this treatment that I'm on. It
Yeah.
takes it out of me. I mean,
Just going back to work, I would imagine, would have been exhausting for you. I mean, for anybody, but particularly you. And then you're doing more than the average bear.
oh, man. But staying busy is good.
Yeah.
Staying busy is part of, that's one of the tricks they use on the submarine. You think about the isolation, you think about the lack of sunlight, you think about the lack of fresh air, you think about that closed, confined space, you think about the mission you're doing.
Mm.
Well, how do they keep you from thinking about all that? And the answer is they keep you busy. You're either cleaning something, fixing something, or training on something, or pretending something's going to happen.
Yeah. Little and often almost.
Yeah. Enough about me. This isn't the podcast about me. This is about you. How have you been?
I've been okay. I've had a relatively difficult week just because I haven't been very well, but that's unusual. But I'm okay now. I've just been so busy, and I think that's perhaps why I haven't been very well this week. So I think I spoke to you sort of mid-August, towards the end of August. I think was I going away to a festival when I last
Yeah.
spoke to you? I
Yeah.
thought so, because I remember frantically editing and publishing your recording from the hotel room and not being able to do as much as I'd like with it. So I still need to go back to that. But that weekend was just, as far as the book and the podcast and exposure could have gone, it was perfect, really. I mean, it was far, far better than I expected it to be. So that was really good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And with wonderful people and great music and people being very, very kind. I mean, it's a very kind festival anyway. It's well known for being a very kind festival. But people were particularly kind to me, which about the book and about the sort of journey to the book, and interested in the podcast, lots of potential guests, and just it made me feel like I'm doing the right thing, which is nice.
That's awesome. Well, I think we both experienced the same thing. I think in our journeys of advocacy, we come across good people. We come across interesting people. We come across nice, kind people. And that helps us. That helps me anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, certainly, again, with both of us or the podcasts that we do, we've not only come across good, kind people, but I think most of them have been through some difficulty of some kind, significant or not, depending on your point of view, but significant to them. And I think that allows people a new look or dimension on their life of to what is important, and perhaps they're a bit more grateful. And I think grateful equals kind, you know?
Yeah. Well, you nailed that. You are a writer.
I'm not. I'm just a good bullshitter.
All right, let's roll. I'm going to get into the intro and the introduction, and we're going to get into the meat of this.
Let's do this thing.
Hi, my name is Jason. I am 54 years old, and at 52, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer that had metastasized to my spine. And on this channel, we talk about it. Today, my guest is Mark Grimes, better known as the Pie Eating Man. He recently had me on his show where we talked about my cancer journey, and now we're having him on our show to talk about something all men face while battling cancer, and that's mental health. His story of battles and recovery connects to the same silence men keep around prostate cancer. We see the same struggle. We see the same, I forget the right word, the withholdingness is what I'm trying to say, but that's not a word. Withholdingness? Is
Obstacles.
that a word? Obstacles. Thank you. He uses humor and honesty to share stories in his book and on his channel that help others through these struggles and makes us all stronger. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Jason. Thank you very much for having me. It's very excited to be a guest for once.
Yeah, it's kind of a different experience to be on that side of it.
Yeah, I'm a naturally inquisitive person, as I imagine you must be, and I'm going to have to sit on my hands as far as asking questions goes.
I was just going to say, one of the challenges you're going to have is not being the person that's like exploring and let's talk about this or what about this. Yeah, this is actually going to put you in a position where you may feel challenged to be as vulnerable as you come out when you're on this side of it.
I think if there's one thing I've learned, and there's one thing I owe the people who've been on my podcast, that honesty and openness is very, very important, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I was a guest on yours, you had an absolutely fantastic poem for me. I wanted to return the favor.
Nice.
So, and I'm not a poet. So, bear with me. The Pie Eating Man, a title baked in humor, his filling not from a can, sadly from something gloomier. His crust, cracked with strain, breaks loose to reveal the masking of his pain, a truth he can't conceal. He writes and speaks of broken days with insight to help others heal. Each page, truth ablaze, each word, a bond of steel. Through humor and through grace, a jester with a plan to free others from that place. He is the Pie Eating Man.
Wow, that is amazing. That now I know how it feels. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And you say you're not a poet. You are. You've clearly achieved it there.
I do enjoy writing, and I can find rhythm to words and stuff, but I've never really tried to write poetry. So this was interesting. This was an interesting exercise for me. I really enjoyed it.
I think you've nailed it.
Well, thank you very much. That's sweet. That's sweet. So you have been open in your book. You have a book. It's called, and I don't have it here because guess what? I read it, and then I know somebody that needed it, and I've already purchased one, read it, and given it away because they needed it.
Perfect. Well, I can help you out with the title because I do know it.
I appreciate that.
It's called The Pie Eating Man's Guide to a Healthy Mind, subtitle, a book for everyday people like me. And there is there's a caveat here. It originally was a book for normal people like me. And I thought, and I took exception. Not that I'm not normal, although I'm not normal, but I don't think anybody is. And I think the book is actually about everybody being different, but coming together. So that's why I changed it to everyday people like me.
Yeah. Well, you even open it up to explain that some of what you do, some of what you like, that to display that you are just an average person.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought I was the first person in the world ever to do that. And then since doing it, I've read about 5 different people's books to help out editor and thing, and all of them did something very similar. But I think that must be, my aim was to level the playing field, but I think it might also be an insecurity of a first-time writer. I think
Yep.
you're almost padding it out to say, this might not be very good, but stick with me.
Well, and also trying to get some engagement with an audience as an instructor, as an assistant professor. First day of class, I'm standing in front of a bunch of strangers, and so I have to kind of open up who I am so
Mm.
that they need something to latch onto, and we recognize that. So we got to throw something out there. Here's something about me. Here's something about me. You want to relate to people in a kind way. You want to relate to people in a way that opens discourse, the dialogue, the engagement. And so you have to be approachable. I found your book opening uh, presented you as very, very approachable. And I enjoyed that.
What I try to do in all of my life, and I don't think any of us achieve this, but I do try. I try to be the same person today, now that we're talking now. I try to be the same guy at work. I try to be the same guy when I'm at a festival, when I'm talking to somebody very wealthy, when I'm talking to somebody who isn't as wealthy. I try to be that person. So it's important to me that people understand that if they see me in the street and they are struggling, I've not just written it in a book. I genuinely will sit down with you and help you because I care, and that's what I was trying to do, I hope. But I'm grateful
Oh,
you've
that's
read it. That's
awesome.
really kind. Thank you.
So was there a single moment that pushed you from, because you had a couple of breakdowns in there, you were struggling with these things that you talk about. Was there a single moment that pushed you into sharing?
I think there isn't a single moment in the book and in my podcast. My friend once told me about life pivots. A friend called Barty, and we were driving down to London. I was 16, he was 32. We were going to a wild party. I didn't really know him very well, but we went to this wild party. And as we were driving down, I started to tell him a story. And he said, whoa, 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 whoa. If you're going to tell a story, you tell it from the start. You give the background, the context, the full story. And as I've said in the book, you can only blame Barty for this book. If
Yep.
it's just trudging through nonsense, then it's his fault, not mine.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
yeah, so I don't have necessarily one. I mean, the primary one I think is obviously my original breakdown in sort when I was between 22
Mm,
and 25. I don't know when it happened, because it creeps up on you. It doesn't just happen.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's possibly what's different between me and people in your scenario is that you get a diagnosis. One day you don't have a diagnosis and the next day you do. So you have an absolute point at which triggers start to happen. And
A
that's really
pivot.
hard. Yeah, a pivot. Whereas with me, it crept up on me, and perhaps it was too late before I realized this is the mess I'm in, because it is literally those straws on the camel's back.
Yep.
But once the back breaks with something like depression, it's a lot of healing and a lot of mending. But the beauty of it for me was I was so young and I had a reason to fix and get back on board, and in a young family, and a mortgage and all of those things. So I was able to learn at a relatively young age that the important things in life. So that made me watch and that made me listen to people in and around me. When I'm in a pub, I will watch and I will listen and I'll learn, and I love people, and I've always loved people. And I love meeting new people. I love differences between people, languages, race, gender, sexuality. I just find anybody who's different to me interesting and intriguing, because they're not me, because I know me. Um, so I watch and I listen and I try to learn at least about people. And then I was at a festival about 5 years ago, and I'm one of these people, or I was one of these people, a man in particular, but it doesn't have to be men, who had preconceived ideas of things like meditation, of things like mindfulness, of things like vegan food, of things like not a day, but a week without somebody saying they're non-alcoholic, all of those things. I had preconceived ideas that they were a sign of weakness,
Hmm.
Maybe that's not exactly right, but certainly that's what that culture seems to see those things as, or as a choice, as a bad choice. Um, but I tried some meditation and I tried some yoga, and it was amazing. And then I had some vegan food, and it was tasty and filling and not disappointing. And I had some non-alcoholic drinks, all at the same event, and they were really nice. And I really thought, oh, I could do this. And that's when I realized, actually, there's loads of people out there like me who could perhaps put some of these things in their lives and see a value from them, but they need to be told that actually it doesn't make you weak, or it doesn't make you odd, or it's not a deficiency. It's just a choice, and it's okay. And we're I, am a 6 foot, 20 stone bloke who might look like he'd kick your head in if you're walking down the street, but I am not that person. And in the same way I judged all of those things,
Mm.
I'm could be judgeable, and I'm not that person. I try to be kind, I try to be helpful, I try to be all of those things that people assume I might not be. And I've tried to just throw judgment out of the window, other than to say that the judgment of people who judge, really don't judge. Open your mind, try something new. And then I, at the same event, I was volunteering for a mental health charity at the time, and we were raising money, but we were talking to people about mental health in an open environment. And a chap came over to me and he said to me, I've just heard what you were saying about your depression and about your experience. And he said, would you mind coming over here and having a chat with me? And I must have spoken to him for about an hour. He was
Oh,
in his
wow.
late, but yeah, he was there for, he was in, and the thing is, as a volunteer for this charity, you normally speak to people online anonymously. So they're anonymous and you're anonymous, and you're speaking through a chat forum. So you don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about you. They just come and say, I'm struggling. And I'll say, okay, how can I help? And we'll talk things out, but this scenario was new to me because I could see the person, and I could formulate something about them from their body language and from their behavior.
Is this did you later have him on your podcast? Is this the man
No,
with the speech impediment?
no, I'd met him last year, but he
Oh,
has
okay.
now been. No, this is a guy in the book. He's referred to as the man because
Oh, all right.
yeah. So the man, basically, he told me he was in his 60s. He'd just retired. He had plenty of money. He loved his wife. He was into cars with his friends. And this festival used to be a really car-based festival, but it's sort of 50-50 music and wellness and cars and all sorts of things
Hmm.
now. But a lot of car people still go to it. And he was there with his blokey 60-year-old mates who were there to talk about cars and look under bonnets. And he just said to me, he said, I think I'm depressed. And he said, I think you've really helped me. I'd like to go to the doctors and seek some advice. And my point
Wow.
was, he had everything going for him. So,
Yeah.
and it's the difference between being depressed and being sad. Everybody's sad now and again. And there's a good chance that most people will have an experience of depression at some point. But he was from a world where people didn't talk about those things and didn't understand those things and didn't perhaps appreciate what it felt like. So just taking the time to explain to him what depression felt like, the effects that it can have on your body, where it puts you, how you can manage it, and how you can go on and do something about it. And that coupled with the sort of wellness experience that I was simultaneously having made me think, I've got to do something about this, because I am him in 30 years or 20 years or whatever, if
Yeah.
I don't.
If you don't. Yep.
Yeah. And I could perhaps help a lot of other people. That's the idea.
And you have a really, really comfortable way of talking about this. What do I mean? In your book, you talk about, you use a lot of metaphors, housing estates, crack crust, things like that. So do you think that the metaphors resonate more than, say, the clinical terms? Do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I enjoyed it.
Good. Well, the idea is, and the idea is what we've been doing hasn't been working. So if I just did the same, the way I see it is most wellness books. I should have brought one, but most wellness books, they have a sky blue cover and they have somebody doing yoga on the beach, and maybe some lemon
Yeah.
yellow bold writing, and then some white writing saying health and mindfulness and things like that.
Yep.
And I knew that that's what everybody does. So I also knew that that's not working for an echelon of society. I believe it's around about the working class in the UK for sure, and that these books are aimed at the middle class, and to some extent, the wealthier middle classes are almost easily or already there. They're already come. It's the worst marketing idea in the world. I've basically written a book for people who don't want to read the book and don't read. So,
Yep. Yep.
but that's why I made the book funny. I mean, you can just see it behind me, but that's me in a yoga pose holding a pie with a view
That's
to eating
awesome.
it. And it's bright orange. Everything I do is I try and go for a ginger theme to match my beard.
Yeah.
So, but I just realized that what we were doing was wrong. So I thought I had to do it differently. I had to approach it from a different angle. And I'm not suggesting that those books don't have metaphors in them. I'm sure they do. But what I thought I would do is I'd try and make metaphors that I had made up, not ones that I've encountered, so that at least they come from somebody like me, and I'm aiming the book to be for somebody like me. But I do believe if you say to somebody, if you hurt your knee in your teenage years and playing football or baseball, or you call it football, we'll call it soccer.
Yeah.
If you hurt yourself and then in your 40s or 50s, when it got cold, that injury started to ache, you wouldn't think twice about going to see a doctor or taking some medication for that.
Yep.
But the same, your brain works the same, whether that's PTSD, whether you've experienced problems as a result of a medical diagnosis, whether or not you re-encounter it. I mean, it could be that someone when you were young had a medical diagnosis, and that lays the fears for all sorts of things in your future. And then you might encounter the same diagnosis. But what you're never going to do is if you keep doing the same thing and it's not working, nothing's going to change,
That's that. Well said. Well said. And when you're talking through these things with guests on your podcast, you're reliving some of your own events. You're seeing some of the things you went through in other people. So when you look back at the hardest moments, do you see them differently now that you have had so many dialogues with people? So now that you've put these words onto paper, do you look back and see those events a little differently?
What the book was incredibly good for me.
Mm,
What I would suggest is, whether you publish it or not, anybody out there, if you want to get your woes out there and you want to analyze yourself a little bit better, write a book. Because if it's something you're interested in, or if it's a subject matter that you know plenty about, it just pours out of you. And it was ever so good for me, ever so good. And I think knowing that the target audience was out there and I wanted to help them, it made you pull your trousers up a bit more and pull your socks up a bit more and try a bit harder, because I wanted people. The goal was always for one person to benefit from the book. That was
was
always the goal from the very beginning. One person. If one person
Yep.
could read the book and go away feeling slightly better than they had before they read the book, my job was done, and everything else was cream. And I know that it's achieved that now, and not boastfully, because people have told me, and
Right.
that's magic. That's
No,
the
I get
best
that.
gift.
I am absolutely on board with that, because you and I are alike in that. That was why I started my podcast, is if I could help even just one person get checked and find out early and get it treated early so they don't go stage 4, so they're not metastatic, then my goal was achieved, and I've met that
Yeah,
goal
yeah.
and
And it's a
continue to do
wonderful
it.
feeling.
It is. It really is. It made it worth it, because these things are a lot of effort. Writing a book is a lot of effort. You're continuing your podcast and these interviews with all the editing is so much work.
Yeah. I don't think people realize that bit, to be honest. And in fact, the interview is a drop in the ocean by comparison to the behind the scenes stuff. But as long as your passion exists and the reason for you doing it remains, then it's worth doing. And I think you and I have also both had a chat with Josh Trosh. Josh Trosh. I don't know how you say
Yeah,
his last name.
yeah,
Um, but he asked me, and I imagine he asked you, um, something along the lines of what you've learned in. He told me in 2 sentences. I don't know if he did you, because I'd taken half an hour to answer one question. I think that was why he told me in 2 sentences. But and I think for me, it's the same thing, really. If you're going to advise anybody else who's doing anything like this, while the passion exists, do it. When it becomes a chore, stop, because
yeah,
it doesn't matter. These things. If you've done your thing, that's wonderful. But equally, if the passion does exist and you're enjoying it, it doesn't matter if one person reads the book or 1,000 people read the book, or if it doesn't matter if one person looks at the podcast or 1,000 people do. If your intentions are good and your purpose is good and you are aiming to help people, then it doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying it, you should do it.
yep. That's
But
awesome.
going back to your question, your
Oh, yeah,
actual
yeah,
question was, do I look at things differently? I tell you what I do look at differently. Um, and it's more from the podcast than the book.
hmm.
And and actually, I don't know if it's a positive or a negative. And interestingly, I was thinking about it earlier, knowing I was going to speak to you, because I'd be interested in your thoughts on this as well. I know I'm interviewing you there, and it's not my intention, but the comparison between your scenario and somebody who's worse off
Mm,
is a really difficult. The more I think, I used to
mm,
think it was easy. I used to think that was easy, but what I don't like the idea of is you being backed into a corner to feel better because somebody is worse off. Because
mm.
I think you're entitled, particularly with things like depression or a medical situation like you're in. I think you're entitled to not have to compare yourself with everything you do. I do think you have to keep it real. And I think you have to understand that there are people worse off and all of those things. But I also think you're allowed chance to grieve for yourself or to feel pain for yourself, and I think that's part of the mending. So, on my podcast, I've
Yeah,
had some horrific scenarios, as you will have seen. I've had people on my podcast
yeah.
who saw their partners murdered in front of them, and I've got nothing that compares with that. Nothing. But I have had some difficult times, and I don't think that person would ever want me to not come forward and struggle a bit because they struggled more. Do you understand what I'm trying to
I
say?
think I do, and for me, it translates as guilt. There are a lot of men I interview that are in situations that make me feel both lucky, but also a little guilty because I feel bad for them,
Huh.
and it's a little bit of a struggle to. No, I've. It's okay for me to feel bad about my situation. It's okay for me to recognize that, yeah, this is a tough spot, even though there are tougher spots. Um, and feeling a little lucky or feeling good about where I'm at right now shouldn't translate into guilt. And
No, absolutely not.
that's the struggle is yeah, this morning I've there's a friend that I met when I did these a fly fishing retreat, Real Recovery. I met a man named Mark Stevens, and he's in a tough spot. And we were playing chess for a little while. I wasn't able to keep up, and we reach out once in a while. And I was thinking this morning, I realized I haven't reached out to him in weeks, and so I'm going to do that today. I'm going to reach out to him. Um, yeah, I don't know where I'm headed with that. It's tough to meet people that are in these really, really, really rough spots, but
Mm.
it's important to, I don't know.
Well, I
I'm,
also think it is tough, and I think, but I still think you're entitled to struggle. But equally, I believe very, very strongly, and this sort of leans into my mental health side of things. Ultimately, our mental health is our own responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. Now, you can dwell on it. You can manifest more of it. You can seek to try and come out of it. You can mask it. You can do whatever you want with it. Anybody else who's willing to help you with it is a gift. Nobody else has to help you with it. So I think what those scenarios do when you know somebody else is worse off than you and they're doing okay, it can be the catalyst for you to pick yourself up and dust yourself off that day. And that's good because it might lead to 2 days of picking yourself up and dusting yourself off, which can lead to 3
Mm,
days and 4 days, a bit
yeah.
like alcoholism, you know. But if it's one day and yesterday was no days, it doesn't matter. That's fine. But what I do think is comparing yourself with people to help you is good, but I think it can be a very slippery slope to take you down.
Yes.
Or yeah, I struggle with comparison with people, but I do. It's the same, a little bit similar to, and I told myself all afternoon when I met you today, the first thing I asked you would not be how are you, and the first thing I asked you was how are you,
How are you?
because it's just so programmed in. And I have such guilt about asking people that question when I know they've got difficulties in their life.
Mm,
But it just falls out. It's like, I know with you, it's a safe conversation, and I know that you would be willing to explain to me why that was difficult for some people, and also whether or not it was a problem today. And I don't think it would be, but I think you would tell me. But I do wish we had more platforms for people to come together and talk about the things they were frightened of.
mm.
Things like getting certain phrases wrong when you're speaking to someone of a different race. Things like using the wrong phrases when you're talking to somebody about gender. Things like in a safe place with somebody who knows what they're talking about and you've both committed to try not to cause offense and try not to take offense. But in order to learn, we all have to sometimes say the things that might cause upset in a different environment. And that's one of the things I like about talking to you, and I like about your guests, is that you have that out sometimes. You talk when two people who are suffering with cancer can talk about the things that are upsetting to them or that are painful to them, I can learn from that without having to do it. But there's not many forums out there that
No, it's a challenging situation to we're in such an immediately judgmental offense society where I don't like that word you said, so here's where I'm going to jump to this extreme reaction. And we've lost the ability to have conversations. We've lost ability to, hey, I heard you say this. I want to understand what you meant by this because here's how
Mm,
that made me feel. Right? We don't
exactly.
have those kinds of dialogues anymore. And like you put people in a safe space. I try to do that because those kinds of conversations are incredibly critically important.
Well, I spoke to Arsenal Wittig last week, who's the chap that you were referring to earlier, who has a
Yeah,
stutter,
there we
a
go.
stammer, and he's
Arsenal.
autistic. Oh, wonderful guy.
Yeah, I
Um,
enjoyed that.
but again, all day long, I thought, right, I looked up what's the proper way to speak to somebody who is autistic, and that's the phrase. You are a person is autistic. They don't have autism, apparently. Now, I think there are probably multiple places that will say different things about that. And Arsenal, I don't think mine's either way, to be honest with you. I think he's as likely to make the mistake because he spent 50 years not diagnosed as being autistic, so
Yeah.
therefore didn't know and probably used the wrong phrases as well. But the last thing on earth I would like to do for anybody, whether it's on a podcast or in person, is upset them because it's just not my way. But
Yep.
there's so many descriptors that could become so difficult to say correctly that then messes with my mental health. It almost comes back on you. But I just wish we could all get on and not fall out. We could proactively help one another to do the right thing.
I feel
Which is
like
what
there's a
you do.
Beatles song. I feel like there's a Beatles song that talks about that.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, yeah.
So when you were writing your book, like there's a lot of very like I'm overusing the word vulnerable, but it is so exposing. There we go. You've exposed a lot about your history and your life. What was the hardest chapter for you to put down in words?
The one I didn't put in.
Well, that's another question I've got written down because I wanted to know, because you do talk about a tough subject. You talk about suicidal thoughts in your book. And I was thinking about, because you say in there, it was one you almost didn't put in. And I thought, I wonder if there was a chapter he didn't put in.
There was one I took out and put back in about 3 or 4 times, which I do explain, which is about the menopause, mainly for my
Oh,
own
yeah.
safety. But yeah, the suicide one was a difficult one because I've never been suicidal. I have thought about the manner in which I would do it if I was going to do it, and I've thought about the impact of it if I had done it, but I never have seriously, I don't think, got close to it. Um, the reason I included it is because it's a massive part of mental health,
Yeah.
and ultimately it's the ultimate, decision to make in mental health. And I think it would have been remiss of me not to at least acknowledge it. And I tried to do it in such a way that I'm no expert in this, but what I do know is that that decision is very final. And
Mm.
out there are people who love you, even if you've not met them yet. Somebody out there
Oh,
is
wow.
special to you, or you may have just don't know what's around the corner. In the same way that we're all 2 or 3 days away from sleeping on the streets if we're not careful. You, I think
Mm.
when you're in a bad place, you're only a short distance from being in a better place. So I just I just had to include it to say, just think long and hard before just speak to somebody. Because if you're having those thoughts, the automatic thought that goes with them should be, I have to speak to somebody, because it's not the answer.
And it's tough. It's tough to get there when, when you're in a spot like that, forming the thought that having the self-awareness of, talking to somebody might help me, because at some point the motivation changes, and like you say, the decision becomes very final. And but yeah, it's a tough subject. Holy cow.
It is, and I think the chemicals in your body and the processes in your brain that are going on when you get to that point, unfortunately, mean you're not thinking generally in a coherent way, in a linear manner that would make you think, I need to seek help. So I think even when you start thinking about anything like that, you must speak to somebody, even if it's someone you'll never meet. I don't know what you have in the UK, in the US, but in the UK we have something called Samaritans, which is again an
Mm.
anonymous telephone line you can call. There'll always be somebody there 24 hours a day, just somebody to say, I, I'm really thinking about this now, and try and get some support. I know it's a
Yeah.
cliche, but a problem shared really is a problem halved. And it really, I mean, there's chemical evidence and scientific evidence to show that that is the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you included so many resources in your book. Another thing that you included was you made it very interactive. Like you have
Mm,
worksheet pages in the back.
mm.
Uh,
The
so,
idea is,
yeah,
w- where do you do most of your thinking? And the idea is that I was thinking of my mates' dads who've worked in manual work all of their lives, and perhaps have all of this stigma that we've been referring to about talking about things, and about even speaking to somebody and gaining the courage to talk about things. And ultimately, my book is not it's not a shot that will make you better. It's not that.
right.
What my book is it's supposed to be me putting my arm around the reader and saying, let's have a chat about this. This is what these things look like, feel like, how you can get help with them. But my thought was, and I don't know what the language is like on here, but when you were going to the toilet and going to do a number two, as we would refer to it in the UK, the idea is that you could take this book with you, almost like an old-fashioned diary that nobody else sees, and you can compile. I've given examples of each of the tables and the
Yeah.
information in there that I've filled out to try and help and instigate somebody to fill them out. But the idea is that you can sit in the quiet, in the peace, in secret if necessary, and fill it out, and perhaps gain the confidence and some understanding enough that you think, I'm ready to talk about this with somebody. And also track it,
Yeah.
tracking your triggers, learning more about who you are and why you feel the way you would do. Because until you think about it, you just think it's life, life doesn't have to be. If your life is miserable, something is wrong, and you need to buy my book and complete it.
That sounds like a title of a next book. If your
Yeah,
life is
maybe.
miserable, something is wrong.
I do have some titles that I've been playing around for book 2.
Well, I was wondering, is there a book 2 in the works?
I did start one. I thought I started one, but I haven't got on very. To be honest with you, because my book is self-published, and I've been trying so hard to get it under the noses of people who can make a real difference. I'd love it if I could just get thousands of people to buy the book so that they can either help themselves or help someone they know. Because that's the other beautiful thing about the book, is that it's as much an aid memoir for someone who wants to help someone as it is for somebody who needs the help.
Yep.
So if I can get it under the noses and in the hands and in the print of the newspapers or the websites of the right people, I just want to help as many people as possible. So whilst my total aim was, I'll have book 2 written by Christmas, it's absolutely not there. When you're doing it yourself, it's great when you've got an agent or a publisher running around for you, but I haven't. But I do have some very, very, very possibly, very interesting guests who have agreed to do the podcast, but they've not done it yet. So I'm not counting any of my chickens, but they have agreed to it, and they are people with. Well, one of them's got over 1 million followers on Instagram, so they are influential people. Hopefully.
Oh yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. So I want to go back to a question we touched on, but I don't think you fully answered. Was there, because there were subjects that you thought about leaving out. There were subjects that you 3 or 4 times, the menopause. Should I put it in? Take it out? Was there actually anything that you wrote that you chose not to include? And you don't have to talk about exactly what it was, because obviously if you didn't include it, that means something, right?
Well, there was actually quite a lot, because the book didn't end up being what I originally intended it to be. It wrote itself. So I started the book with a view to it being much more of a guide to do certain things.
Oh,
and it
okay.
became, my editor sort of said, the bit about you is really interesting. Can you make that more? So I did. And I tried to help. It became a manual or a guide over general mental health issues and it wasn't intended to be that. So in honest answer to your question, I didn't take anything out that I wouldn't put somewhere else.
Okay.
But I did take locks out that are sat in a document called the scrap heap, which is basically all of the things I would like to reuse in future books. There were things that, because I'm answering the question you asked, not necessarily the question you wanted the answer to. But
yeah.
There were things in that I chose not to write because it would be wrong of me to write them. Because what I didn't want to do when writing the book is offend anybody. There's one person who is talked about quite a lot, a former boss of mine.
Yeah.
But I was very, very careful not to let anybody know where I worked, what gender the person was, how old they were, their name, anything about them. And I still haven't, and I won't, because, I would imagine it might open me up to litigation.
The defamation lawsuits, yeah.
Absolutely. But not only that, I just don't think it's fair. That's a chapter of my life that's gone. It's dealt with. It hurts still, but it helped me learn a lot. But yeah, that, as we'd say in the UK, that's just not cricket.
Yeah.
I think you've got I think if you want to be seen as an honourable person, you have to act honourably, and I tried to do that in the book.
Nice. And you did it. You did it very nicely. I think
Thanks.
executed that well. On your podcast, you have tough conversations with people.
Yeah,
It was a tough conversation to talk with me about cancer.
yeah.
How do you prepare mentally going into these? Because, like you said, you've met a lot of interesting people that have had these sometimes horrific experiences.
Prepare. Well, man, the more I think about it,
I guess what I'm asking is these conversations may dredge up old feelings, and you may re-experience some things that
not like
no,
that.
okay,
There's there's very little that I am uncomfortable about talking about. What I do try to do is vet the people relatively well in the first place to ensure that they are comfortable talking about it. The worst thing that I can ever do in anything is cause upset through
yeah,
innocence. Non-intended upset is my worst feeling. So it's very important to me that I ask guests things that they don't want to be asked about to make sure that I don't put them in a tight spot. Um, the one that affected me the most is the one that I've referred to, was my friend Laura, whose partner was murdered in front of her, and she was shot by the same guy with a crossbow whilst pregnant, and he was the next door neighbor. I don't know what channel it is in the US, but she's called Laura Sugden. First of all, you should go to my YouTube channel and watch it on there. But in the UK, there's a channel called Crime and Investigation, and there's a documentary just come out about that on there. But it wasn't the conversation that hit me hard, although I did, because I knew Shane as well, who was murdered. I knew Laura very well, and I knew Shane a little bit. It was editing it, because
because
as you
you're
will know, when
reliving it.
you over and
Uh,
over and over and over and over again, and I didn't think it would
yeah.
affect me like it did, but it did, to the
Oh
point
man.
where I support Laura in everything she does, because, again, going back to that conversation we had earlier, and this might be why I've thought about it quite a bit. Who am I? Who am I to struggle with the editing of that story when she went through it? And actually, I think that's okay to struggle with the editing of that story, even though Laura went through it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't watch the program. I had it on, but I couldn't look at it. I had to cover my eyes. I don't know why. I listened to it. I had to cover my eyes. I've never had that before. I've never done that before. I don't know what it meant psychologically, but that was tough. I don't like some of the subjects that have come up which are unfair. One of the ones that you might not even remember really mentioning it, but when you mentioned about daylight and the lack of daylight affecting, being a cause of cancer, and the fact that the US government quickly removed that from their website so that people presumably can't benefit from the benefits that were associated with that. I don't like that. And they're the things I think about. So there's another chap who I
Mm.
interviewed in my third or fourth interview, who's a barrister, a black barrister in the UK. He, not only has he faced difficulty because of his skin color, but he campaigns for some memorials to do with relatives of his who fought in the Second World War in the UK that came over from the Caribbean. And even to this day, and I know that race is probably a hotter topic in America than it is here, but even to this day, they won't. The local council won't put a plaque up to recognize these people and the sacrifices that they made. And they're the things that keep me awake, despite all the things that,
That's the
yeah,
stuff that lives in your head, huh?
yeah,
Wow.
I can't bear unfairness. I mean, tragedy is one thing, but tragedy is generally non-reversible, but unfair decisions are just wholly wrong. And usually, that somebody could just press a button and put it right. And they're the things that really get under my skin. But yeah,
So
the subject matter, I think everybody who's been on the podcast has come on. There's only one person who came on semi-reluctantly, and it's only because she's so wonderful. She thinks her story is not interesting. That's Claire Greaves. She thinks
Mm.
that she was homeless as a young girl and has gone on to achieve wonderful things. She's just got such anxiety about herself, and that's just unfounded. She's been one of the most popular of the videos that we've had. But I just everybody who's been on has got a message to share. So I don't struggle with asking them the questions because I've asked them what they don't want to be asked. And I also tell everybody who comes onto the podcast, even if I do ask something you haven't thought of, we'll take it out. When I edit things, a conversation can go a certain way, and in the moment it's fine. But when I watch it back, I can think, oh, that might show that person in a bad light. So I'll just take it out. I don't ask. I don't say, would you mind? I just take it out. I don't want people to do something that I'm involved with that they might regret or feel sad about, or that might show them in any sort of a bad light. And for me, the guests are the heroes. I'm just the chalkboard asking the question,
We are so much alike. We are so much alike. So many of the things you say and how you approach this, and it just absolutely resonates. Like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I do this. Yeah, I like that.
But I think that's probably why I mean, I don't know if you know, I only learned recently, but people with ADHD, apparently one of the
Mm.
traits of ADHD, and I do have ADHD. I know everybody's got it at the moment, but I do have, and I have had since I was a child. But I don't see it as something that holds me back. I see it as a propellant. It's my superpower. But one of the things with ADHD apparently is when you meet people, you instantly think they're your friends when you spend any time
Hmm.
with them. And I've done that all of my life, to the point where my mum used to say, I had to be really careful when you were little because you were constantly like trying to be friends with everybody. Even now, and I've got such a good memory for faces. I'll see someone that I haven't seen for 20 years and I'll go, hi, how are you? And I expect them to say, hi, I'm great, how are you? And one, they know I have no idea who I am.
Well,
Two, I look nothing like I did 20 years ago. And
yeah.
three, even if they didn't know who I was, they would think, well, he's just that person I had a 5-minute conversation with 20 years ago.
Oh, it's awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome.
So, but I do, I think this podcasting, I don't know if you feel the same, but you do get quite a bond with somebody. Because it's just two of you talking, especially on the subject matters that we're talking about. I think it's a special thing. I do scuba diving, and I always think anybody you scuba dive with as a buddy, because your life depends on them and their life depends on you. That's a very special bond as well. But this is not dissimilar. I'm not suggesting my life depends on you, but there's an argument to say you could ruin me should you wish to edit it in a certain way.
But I agree. You're right about the bond. I've had some guests that I talk to them. I connect with them and say, "Hey, do you want to be a guest?" And they come on the show, and we have that one conversation. And then I find myself wondering about them and thinking about them. And some of them are really good about keeping the conversation up. Hey, Jeff Noel, fantastic. I make
Don't
some
introduce me to
really
Jeff because he'll become one of my friends then.
oh, oh, you should. Oh, he's awesome. And then, and he's really good about keeping up the email. And then there's others that I want to keep that kind of a connection with. And I think about, I'm really good friends with Adam. I'm really good friends with Mark Lacey, and we've had some emails back and forth and that one conversation. And to me, I'm friends for life with all these men, all these
Yeah, same.
guests. And there's so many of them. I've done so many episodes now, and I think about, I got to reach out to this person. I haven't heard about. I wonder if this person got this scan done. I wonder if this person got this PSA done. I find myself wondering, have you got your PSA checked yet, to put you on
No,
the
I haven't,
spot?
but I do need to. I definitely need to, and it's not because I've been avoiding it. I've just been ridiculously busy, but I do need to, and I am now 46.
I was wondering, when you having me on your show to talk about cancer, what did you take away from that? Like, what did that conversation mean to you personally?
I really admire you. And I think perhaps unconsciously, because of what you've said today, some of that is because we're coming at a different problem from a similar angle. So my admiration isn't necessarily for me in that sense, but what I mean is that I think what you're doing is really good and important. And I hate to say it because I know it's a word that we shouldn't use, but it's a word that people use because they genuinely mean it, but I don't think you feel it. And that is brave. I think what you're doing is brave, and I think it's admirable. And
Well, it's the
it
same.
hurt.
I
It
see you
hurts
the
me.
same way.
That's kind, but yours hurts me because it is finite, and that hurts to say.
It hurts to think about it. It hurts to feel it. But we're what's more important is what we're both doing is how can we help other people?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what we get out of that. But I appreciate your honesty there. I appreciate your to overuse that word again, vulnerability. Yeah.
There's not many people I could say that to, and I don't really like saying it to you, but there's a guilt associated with that for me.
I get that because I get that one with some of my guests too, where I feel, I get it. I understand completely. Man.
But what your tale, I think the worst thing about your tale is that hundreds of thousands of people have done the same thing and are doing the same thing, and that the machine is broken if that's the case. We're not doing something right, because I'm not saying it's an easy problem to solve, but it's a scenario that were it better managed, it would be less of a problem.
Yep. If we were putting the resources in the right spot instead of, yeah.
But
Yep.
even if you take resources away, even if you do that and you just make it a cultural thing, it's ridiculous that our culture is more interested in what David Beckham's doing on TikTok than understanding that, as I said, it's just a blood test. You know,
Yep.
going and doing that at the right age, at the right time. I mean, even if you just look at it from a fiscal point of view, financially for the country, it's got to be better if we
Yeah.
made it mandatory. You know,
Yep. Because if you get that early detection, make it mandatory to get that blood test, track them, then you're saving that hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of
yeah,
dollars potentially in long-term care and in expensive treatments and in expensive scans.
yeah,
Because if you catch it early, it's extremely treatable.
yeah, and you would think it would be in the interest of employers to get people in every 6 months, just do the lot. Whether it's mammograms or whether it's the PSA test, whatever it is. But so I think in answer to your question, that's the answer that I didn't want to say, but it is what it is.
I appreciate that. And I feel like we made this more about me. So I need to bring it back to
I'm good at
you.
that. Well, let me tell you a little story. I've got a friend, and hopefully he's going to be a guest in November, called Trev. And he's a sheep farmer. And he's also, he does pest control. So he manages deer populations on some large estates. And in the south of England, I don't know exactly where, and I can't remember the name of the chap anyway, but the Duke of somewhere, was the best friend of the former Prince of Wales, now King of England. And my friend Trev was his sort of groundskeeper. He used to go and shoot the deer for him. This makes it sound like we all know the king in the UK. This is
Right.
like so
Wow.
rare. This is like, it's like really not common just for your American listeners.
Okay.
So I just happen to know that. I just know a lot of people and I speak to a lot of people. Anyway, Trevor was telling me, and he was shearing these sheep and he was with his wife. And when you're shearing a sheep, you're bent right over and you're holding the sheep and you're shearing them. And his wife said, Trev, and he's like, clear off. He said, let me just do this. And Trev, no, can you just clear off? I'm doing this. Anyway, he said he looked between his legs and he saw two sets of very smart men's shoes and one pair of very smart female shoes. And he stood up, and it was the Duke of wherever and the Prince of Wales and his wife, the now Queen. And this guy said, "Oh, hello, Trevor. Thank you ever so much. We'd like you to join us for dinner this evening." And he's like, "Well, I can't join you for dinner." He said, "I've only got these scruffy clothes and I stink." "No, it's tomorrow evening." Yeah, because it was a weekend thing. And he said, "We'd like you to join us for dinner tomorrow evening." "Well, I can't. I'm dressed like this." No, we'd really like you to join us for dinner tomorrow evening." "Well, I can't. I've literally got these scruffy jeans that are covered in sheep poo and a shirt and blah, blah, and I'm sweaty and whatever." And they said, "No, you don't understand. You really need to join us." And he said, "I'd like you to go and see my tailor in the village. He'll sort you out with a suit and you can join us for dinner tomorrow night." He's like, "Oh, great." And he said, "We'll get your wife a dress and blah, blah, blah." Anyway, he said he went for dinner, and his wife, the Duke of wherever it was, and his wife, and the now King of England and his wife were sat at a table. There was 6 people at the table, and Trev was one of them with his wife. And the reason I'm telling you this is because he said that he asked him lots of questions, the King of England, King Charles. And he said that of all the skills he had, he was absolutely fantastic at not answering any of the questions and making them into a question for him. He said, "I don't think I got one answer, but it felt like I'd got all of my questions answered and I went away with a skip in my heels, but actually all I'd done is answer questions for him all night." So, and that's what you made me think of when you said I've just
Oh,
ended up
that's
interviewing you.
awesome. That's awesome.
Mm.
All right. Let's bring this back to well, actually I do have a question. Why is giving back so I guess closely tied to your book?
In this case, it's a question of honor again. The idea for the book and a lot of the inspiration comes from the festival that I was talking about earlier, Carfest.
The
And that's
community.
run,
Yeah.
yeah, that's run and organized by a guy called Chris Evans, who in this country is very famous. It's not the Captain America
Yeah.
Chris Evans,
I had
it's
to look
a
at his
radio
picture
Chris
a
Evans.
couple times. Like he keeps saying Chris Evans. Am I
Well, in the UK, Chris Evans in the 90s for sure was probably the most powerful presenter, or certainly music presenter in the country, and was extremely, extremely powerful. I don't mean powerful like a bad man, just influential. Um, and he had some really big TV hits. I think some of them went to the US. Actually, there's one called "Don't Forget Your Toothbrush." I think that went over there. And anyway, and he is responsible for the festival, and it was Chris that by pure coincidence. Again, it sounds like another king, but I don't. We,
I
when I
I
was
totally
doing,
believe that you know the king now. I totally
I don't
do.
know the king. I don't know the king. I've seen him once. He's tiny. Anyway, so. At this festival, one of the interesting or unique things about it is that it's full of side shows, lots of tents, where you can go and watch celebrities give talks, or well-known wellness people give talks, or authors give talks, or musicians. Bob Geldof did one this year, and all sorts of things. And there was a well-known presenter doing some yoga, and I went and did this yoga, and Chris turned up to the yoga and ended up sitting next to me. And it was at that session when I said, Chris, how do I go about writing a book about these things that I don't really know anything about, and I don't know how to write a book? And he basically said, "You've just got to do it. You've got to get on and do it." There was a bit more to the story than that, but that's the long and short of it. But because I listen to Chris's show every day, he's been through a massive transformation since the 90s. He was a big party boy and all that kind of stuff. But now, he's all about wellness and eating well. He does a lot of running. I don't do a lot of running. But he has inspired me, and he has helped me out of the depression hole, and he's helped me stay out of that depression hole. And he's introduced me to lots of things that I would never have done. The charity I volunteered for was something that I got into because of an advert on his show. and I learned a lot of what I now know, or I reinforced a lot of what I now know for the book from doing those things. So it was the right thing to do for me to volunteer a portion of the profits back to because basically Carfest is a totally not all of the profits go to charity. It doesn't make a penny from it.
Wow.
So 10% of every ticket sale goes to charity, but once they hit a threshold, 100% of all the ticket price goes to charity, and it's to
Oh,
a
that's
selection of
awesome.
children's charities. Yeah, it's brilliant. And next year it's moving to Silverstone, which is where the British Grand Prix is held, and they've just gone on sale. And I think there's 500,000 tickets get sold for that event every year, and I think they've said you can put £1 on every ticket, and you can choose to take that off if you want to, but if not, that £1 will go to the charities for Carfest because it's going to be held there next year. So that's
Oh,
instantly
that's
like half a
awesome.
million quid. Yeah, my £30 is not going to make a massive difference, but so that
It'll get better. It'll get better.
the answer to your question is, for me, everything I try to do is about honor, and I think it's the honorable thing to do. I've learned a lot, and I've taken a lot from his influence and from the event that he organized. So the least I can do is give back to the charities that benefit from it.
It's awesome. And I want to help support that. Are you okay with me putting a link to your book in my
100%.
in the description?
100%.
Okay, I'll do
I'd
that.
be grateful for that.
I got one last question because I mean we've talked about mental health, but we've talked about a lot of things, closely related to mental health, but we haven't really hit a mental health question. What's the biggest change you hope your work, your book, your podcast, this conversation, your future conversations, what's the biggest change you hope that all this will spark in men, in how men deal with mental health?
I thought your last question was going to be, how on earth are you 46 when you look so young and handsome? But clearly not. So I'm
Clearly
a bit
not.
upset about it.
I missed that opportunity. Sorry.
Your question to me is flawed, and I'll tell you for
Yeah,
why.
fair enough.
I'm not an ambitious person. I'm an enthusiastic person, but I'm not an ambitious person. And
Huh.
people often confuse the two. Certainly people I meet, I think when people first meet me, they often think I'm overbearing, I'm borderline aggressive, I am pushy, and I'm not. I am not any of those things, despite it coming across that I might be. And I think the more you get to know me, the more you realize that I'm a big softie and I'm not really any of those things. What I am is extremely enthusiastic and extremely loyal. So I think the question is, what are the biggest effects that I would like my book to have, or expect my book to have? I can only deal with what are the smallest effects that I would like them to have, and I think we've kind of covered those. That is, I want them to change
Yeah.
one person's life. Because I'm not ambitious, I'm not very good at putting things in lines in the sand as I'd like to sell 1 million copies. I mean, obviously, I would love to do that, but I think if I'm going to be fair and answer the question in the manner in which I think you've asked it, to be brutally honest, and I don't think I've said this to anybody, I didn't write the book to be wealthy, but it would be really nice if I can help charity, help people, and make a little bit of money to enable me to do the next book. That's what, because it's not cheap process. It's
No.
everything is self-funded. As you know, the podcasts are all of those things, and they do serve as adverts, and they do serve as, I do them because I enjoy them. But it would be nice if one of them went somewhere and actually allowed making those things easier, and making another one and helping more people easier. So I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't really want to live off it, but I would like it to fund itself in order to be able to fund something more, because I
Yeah, right
think it's
now
working.
we're both in what I like to call out-of-pocket advocacy.
Yeah, that's
I
about
I
perfect.
pay I forget how, I don't even know how much I'm paying some of these companies, but for Riverside, I pay some stupid fee every month because it's all subscription stuff now. I
Yeah,
pay Opus Clips, I pay storage space. There's all these different subscription things, and this is all out of pocket. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I was talking to Josh Trosh the other day because what I could do with is a better appointment system. You've got to pay for that, and you've got
Yep.
everything. And it like you say, it's all small subscriptions. Even finding a guest. Sometimes I've signed up to a thing that helps you find guests, and that even charges. It's
Yep.
crazy. But that's a delicate response because
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for money.
You're
And I'm
not
not
doing it
out
for
for
money.
money.
We're not, it's not a greedy thing. This is how can we better the better this system supports itself, the more we can do.
When you look at how much money is made by the fat cats, whether it's in books or in podcasts, and how little help comes back, a bit like in the UK, we have the Premier League football teams, how they are obliged, although they don't do a great deal of it, to support the lower level teams. And I'm sure it's the same in America with baseball and American football, but they just seem, because this is not managed really. It's quite a wild west is the podcasting industry, and there doesn't seem to be a lot coming back from the people who make the most. And I wonder if that what they do actually lines their pockets, whereas you and I would just like to make it less incumbent upon us to help
Yeah.
people,
So
because
that
that's
we
what
can
it
help more
is.
people. Yep.
Yeah,
I,
and that's exactly my reasoning for that.
I've had that thought of, I wish Mr. Beast would just watch one of my videos and go, oh man, I wonder if I could help.
Well, let me tell you. I mean, Chris Evans has read my book. Chris Evans has a radio show every day, and he's talked about it he interviewed me on his radio
Well,
show.
that's awesome.
And I've got a little sticker on the front of it which says what he said, which is, this is only a very shortened version, but a great book, fizzing with your voice, your heart, and your soul, perfectly pitched, a cracking read. So now, but even that, it didn't sell many copies. What it does, it offers me some endorsement and some legitimacy when I approach people, when I approach people for reviews or whatever, and that's great.
Yeah.
And the other thing it allowed me to do was speak to some of these people at Carfest who are hopefully going to come on the podcast, because there's a trust goes with what Chris says. So, and I, as far as those things go, I'm probably doing as well as anybody could be doing who's a nobody, and it still doesn't really make a lot of difference.
Wow. Yep. Yep.
So, you, your face has to fit, and you have to be. I mean, when I was approaching various agencies to get my book listened to and read, I know it's a good book. I know there are flaws with it, but I expect that that's something that they would attend to. But it's a good book, and it's helping people. I've obviously, people who speak to me are going to be biased in what they say to me. But I genuinely think it is a good book, and I think it genuinely does help people, and I think it is a bit different. That's the other thing. I think it is hitting the...
It's like you say, the example you used early on, there's a slew of copy and paste book covers and content and all that AI generated crap out there now. And yours stands out as one of the comments I get about my podcast is that it's genuine, that we're having real conversations, and it touches people in a different way. And your book does that same thing. It's very, very, I used the word approachable early on. It's very approachable. It's very easy to connect with. It's just very genuine, and it's really, really well done.
Thank you very much for that. But I do wonder if it's just a lack of fame or money or something that getting it under these agents' noses. I mean, what part of the problem is, I sent it to 26 different agencies, and not only do they say, we'll try and look at it, we'll look at it as quickly as we can, we'll come back to you between 8 and 12 weeks, but that's only if we do come back to you. If we don't come back to you, don't hang on, don't wait for me, don't call us. And you think, 12 weeks, that's 3 months I have to now wait when the book is written, because my fear was somebody will take the idea, Somebody will
Yep.
take it, and somebody famous will do it, and I will have nothing, I'll have nothing left. So
Yep.
I waited and waited, but they don't even have the decency to say, thanks ever so much for sending the book, but we're not really interested in it. How hard is that email to send after? You could automate it after 12 weeks. Press a button. If this
Yep.
person hasn't been contacted in the next 12 weeks, send them this email. Just say thanks, but no thanks. But that honor that I try and operate with just doesn't seem to exist in those worlds, and it is
Nope.
absolutely
It's a
who you
brutal
know.
profit driven industry, and they're
Yeah,
not going to latch onto it and say, hey, this is what will work and then this is what will make money for us until somebody famous or already published that's a known writes something similar. And then
yeah,
when that's something similar out there, then they're all of a sudden, it's like when all those vampire novels, what's that series, the Twilight series,
yeah.
then all the
True
publishers
Blood, and
wanted was teenage vampire novels. And that's all they would publish. And then
yeah,
so until there's some famous thing out there saying this is what works, it you see it in the movie industry. What are they
yeah.
right now? They had a successful remake of something, right? So what do we see saturating the film industry? Well, they're just looking for remakes of older
Yeah.
things because that worked that one time. And
Yeah.
they're out of touch with what people want. They don't care what people want.
They just want to make money, and I think that
Yeah.
that is it. They've never heard of me. Nobody's heard of me, and unless they're going to put a lot of money into marketing it. But I mean, that's why I went for the Pie Eating Man rather than my name, because one, I thought in the UK certainly, because the pie is like fish and chips. I know I've mentioned that to you before, but not necessarily to your listeners. But the pie is an equivalent to a fish and chips. It's a working class choice. So the Pie Eating Man appeals to an echelon of society here. And there's actually a couple of, well, one of them sadly died this year, but or last year. A couple of guys called the hairy bikers who are chefs,
Oh
and
yeah.
they zoom around. Do you know who they are?
We talked about this on when I was on your
Yeah,
show. Yeah.
yeah. So they go around the UK and the world on motorbikes, and they cook wherever they go. But again, when they started their career, nobody knew who they were. So I think they went for the hairy bikers because it appealed to an echelon of society. And I thought, well, yeah, I could do that, because who wants to listen to Mark Grimes's Guide to a Healthy Mind? Nobody's heard of him, but everybody's heard of a pie eating man, and that was the idea. But it
That's
is a
awesome.
struggle.
It is. Yeah. Man, I had a follow up question and I just lost it.
Dig deep.
It was a good one too. Dang it.
I mean, we're probably the best one.
It might have been the best one.
Have you had a rocket up recently?
I am. Let's see.
You were
There's a
making one with your
launch.
son last time I spoke to you.
Yeah, we did launch those. I put in fact, there's a video of the launch on my YouTube channel. On
I'll
the
check it.
yeah,
The other thing I
it
didn't
is
do, and
pretty
I keep
cool.
meaning to go back to do, is put your cheesecake recipe on. I must do that. I've got to do that.
Oh man, that key lime cheesecake. Oh, that was so good. Oh, that was ridiculously good.
Did you try it
Man,
with hobnobs and ginger nuts though?
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't made one for a long time now. I may not have made a cheesecake since that video. Now that I'm thinking about it. But for the Rockets, what I am doing is there's a local church with a group of boys that they meet like every Wednesday, and they look for projects to do. And somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, I heard you're a rocket specialist." I was like, "Well, probably not, but," and they're like, "Hey, could you show these boys how to build rockets?" Heck yeah, I could do that. So I went online and I bought a dozen little tiny Estes rocket kits and some motors. And next week I'm going to meet with them, and I'm even doing a slide deck. Like I'm doing a slide deck showing a little bit of the physics of rocket flight and propulsion. And then we're going to break down into airframe and recovery, all these little key things. And then we're going to build rockets.
But I
So I'm
think
looking
that
forward to that.
I think that's really important. Well, I can't remember if you remember, but I used to have a bushcraft business, and I used to take people into the woods and teach them to light fires and build shelters and do that kind of thing. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is how much science you're learning from playing. Building a
Yeah.
shelter. The more weight that you put on it, providing you're using strong bows, the stronger it becomes rather than the weaker it becomes. Which is the physics makes it dig in and makes it stronger and all those kind of
Yep.
things, and the nature and all of that kind of stuff, and fire. The chemistry involved in fire and all that kind of stuff. But um, I think without what you're saying, without the introduction, I when I learned to drive a car, I asked the driving instructor, because I don't know anything about cars really, to explain to me what the pedals were doing under the bonnet so I could better understand why I had to use them. And I think what you're doing will help them to understand why you have to be safe, why you have to, why the rocket's shaped the way it is, all of those things. But you need to get permission and see if you can film it and put it on the video.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, that might be good. Yeah.
And the other thing you could teach them about is podcasting.
I don't know anything about podcasting. Oh, I set out on this mission without a mission. It was absolutely just that hope that I could help one person and share some information that might stick around longer than me. And it just kind of grew from there. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Well, I've got my interview with Josh next week when I'm interviewing him. And if I had a criticism of Josh's, it was that it wasn't long enough.
Oh,
I
yeah,
felt
that
it
was
like,
so short, like 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. And I
You're
had
just
a
getting to
lot
know
more
somebody.
to say. Yeah. But I thought that what I did say, or certainly what I believe with regard to podcasting, is that the reason I podcast is not because I wanted a podcast. It's because,
Right.
for the same reason as you, I wanted a message out there. And I knew that the most equitable way of doing that is using a podcast. So, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I still don't really. I think you're more technically capable than you let on. But I decided that the message was so important that if I started to do it, it would, the quality of it, I knew I could improve the quality of it as I went along. I'd learned from my mistakes, and there is a definite upward correlation between, the date that I did the first podcast and now. And I've learned a lot, all self-taught, but it was all just to get the message out there. But I think if your message is strong enough, and I think if your reason is strong enough, people will suffer less good quality podcasts as long as they can see it improving to something that is watchable in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've remembered my question.
Good. That's why I kept talking.
It pies. So when I was on yours, we never talked about my favorite pie.
No, we didn't. And yes, we did. You was a sweet one. Apple pie. Did we not? Oh, brilliant. Well, I need a recording of this so I can play it out then.
So I'll share mine, but I also want to know yours. I've got two. My favorite pie is a sour cream lemon with no meringue. Sour cream lemon.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
lemon
right.
sour cream with no meringue.
Do you know what we called that? We don't call it lemon sour cream. We
What do you
call it
call it?
lemon curd.
Oh, that's my favorite. And then the other one, I have a backup, and that's a strawberry rhubarb, because as a growing up, my mom had rhubarb plant in the backyard,
I love
and
rhubarb.
would mix them with strawberries and make pies. Oh, look at that.
I love rhubarb.
Heck yeah. And no, there's so many people that don't even know what rhubarb is. And
they do in this country.
Yeah.
In
So
fact,
what's your favorite pie?
Well, I will come back to your question, but I live about 70 miles away from what's called the Rhubarb Triangle. And it's 3 towns in the UK that are very famous for growing rhubarb. But the best way to grow rhubarb is to force it.
Oh, wow.
And it's grown in the dark.
Wow.
And when you go to the rhubarb growing units, I've never been to one, but apparently you can hear it growing because it creaks. But yeah,
Wow.
Rhubarb Triangle, look it up.
I will. Yep, absolutely. That's awesome.
But I have
weird.
I have one bucket in my garden, because I don't have a very big garden, but I have rhubarb trying to grow in that, but it's not very successful. So I can't give you one. I can't give you one pie. Have you ever had a savory pie?
I have, and I do enjoy them. But man,
Okay.
once you get that sweet tooth, holy smokes,
No, no, no.
it's
You're
hard
so
to
wrong.
pass.
No, 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 no. And do you have crumble out there?
We do. Like we have
Ah,
like apple crumble and yeah.
see, rhubarb crumble would be my favorite crumble.
Ooh,
Yeah, rhubarb crumble is amazing. Or gooseberry crumble. Do you have gooseberries?
I have no idea.
Or
Googling what is a gooseberry.
yeah, you have to look. It's spelt gooseberry, but they are sour like rhubarb, but they also make an excellent crumble. Or gooseberry, as some people call them in this country.
Okay, yeah, yeah. We have
When I
those.
was a kid, every garden in the 80s had a gooseberry bush, and they were the most evil, thorny bushes that you've ever played and hide and seek behind ever. But yeah, so my pies, you see, it would be a savory pie for a start.
Okay. Yep.
And I would have to, for ease of answering, I would have to draw a distinction between a pasty and a pie.
Ooh, all right.
So a pasty isn't a pie for me. A pasty is a pasty only because the name pie isn't there, and it makes it a damn sight easier. So I think if I could choose any pie I've ever had, it would be my grandma's meat and potato pie, steak and potato pie, which was the pastry. My mouth is watering. They were just the best pies in the world, and I adored my
That's
grandma. And
awesome.
I think a lot of it was about how much love went into the pie. You could taste it. She was an amazing human. And after that, if I went to a standard shop, it would be it'd be one of three. It'd be a steak pie, a chicken and mushroom pie,
Ooh,
or a chicken tikka pie.
chicken tikka.
Do you get tikka out there?
I don't know.
Chicken tikka. That's like it's like a curry. It's curry.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We do. Yep. Oh, a chicken curry pie. Oh yeah. I could get behind that.
Yeah, chicken tikka
I'm
pie.
hungry now.
Oh.
All I've had this morning so far is coffee.
Yeah, that's how I tend to start. Well, it's my evening now, so it's getting on.
Oh,
for my
yeah.
day. In fact, no, we've got lasagna for tea. I thought we had pie. But we've
Ooh,
got lasagna.
nice.
Lasagna.
Well, for anybody that's sticking around, I want to say thank you. I hope you have everybody's enjoyed this conversation I had with Mark as much as I have, because this has been fantastic. I am so happy to have had you on my show and touch base with you again. And I want to keep doing this. I want to stay in touch. I want to know when you get your PSA tested
Yeah.
and what the number is.
Okay. I shall do that. I will arrange that this week. And also, can I just say, if anybody has been foolish enough to stick around listening to my dulcet tones for the remainder of this podcast, that I wasn't even invited on this podcast. I had to persuade Jason to have me on because I enjoyed talking to him so much last time, and I was desperate to find a way of speaking to him again. So I thought, let's just talk about mental health, because any of the people that would traditionally listen to your podcast are probably heightened access to the need for mental health as well alongside that. So,
Yep.
and if anybody ever wants to reach out, I mean it exactly what I say. If people want to contact me by email, they can do pieeatingman@outlook.com. And also feel free to grab my book, join the podcast. My podcast is all about life pivots, if you didn't get that. So it's people who've been through a major change in their life, how they've managed it, and how they've gone on to be an inspiration. And again, perhaps people who listen to your podcast would take some benefit from that, or they might just be struggling to nod off. So
Yeah.
they can.
Oh, it's better than that. It's better than that. Well, thank you, Mark. This has genuinely been a treat, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
You're a top guy. Hold you in such high regard. And have you been to see the ducks recently and the flowers in the?
Not recently, no. Nope.
You
I
need
need
to go
to. The
do
weather's
that.
getting better. It's not as hot now. It's starting to cool off. So, yep.
You need to go.
Time to do the walks again.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Love you all.
Thanks, bye. Thanks, bye-bye.